Welcome back to another edition of the Wolverine.com podcast with Doug Skene, Michigan's former All Big Ten offensive lineman, with the green M&Ms in his dressing room there, and on demand, Mr. All Big Ten guy. All right, I'm joking. Skene is a humble guy, and that's saying something. Played on one of the best lines that Michigan's ever seen. I think I ranked you guys number 2 or 3 of all time, or the last 50 years. I think that's probably fair, right?
Yeah, I think it's fair. We used to debate, and then I remember talking with Everett and Everett. We were debating the '97 line versus our line, and Steve Everett of all people said, I think we have to give it to those guys because they did something we didn't do. They went undefeated. We didn't quite do that, but they were really, really good. And I know there were lines that preceded us that were really, really good too. But I would like to think that in the history of that football program, we were a top five.
Did you get an MVP trophy for that Ole Miss game, the Gator Bowl?
So the
The Gator
starting
Bowl?
five, I didn't start that game, but the
I know you
offensive
didn't.
line and the Gator Bowl trophy, that MVP thing. I remember seeing it down at Everett's house there in Florida. And so, yeah, that's a big deal. I mean, an offensive lineman to get an MVP because we ran up and down the field at will on those guys. And so, we all know the tradition and the history of the Michigan offensive line performance over the decades. And this year's team is showing flashes and maybe the potential to live up to those expectations, which is exciting because we haven't seen that in quite a while. Of course, there's a lot of football left to be played, but the indicators are very positive so far.
Yeah, they ran for, I think, a NCAA record 1,320 yards against Ole Miss, and all right, it wasn't that much, but you got some time in that game, right?
Yes, yeah, I think we all played. I got in that game for sure. That was a fun week. Our class, we went Rose Bowl, and then we tied for the Big Ten championship. And so we ended up going to the Alligator Bowl down there in Jacksonville. But that was a fun bowl trip, Alice. We did get to go visit and tour an active aircraft carrier there at the naval base. So that was a cool experience. And being around Jacksonville wasn't as bad as we thought it was going to be. We had some fun times down there. Of course, it wasn't the Rose Bowl, so we got greedy and went back to the Rose Bowl and Rose Bowl for our 4th and 5th years while we were there in Ann Arbor.
Yeah, not bad. So we talked to Sharon Moore today, and I want to comment on the job that he's done. And I don't care who you're running against. When you're running 350 yards a game and number 1 in the country against defenses that know you're going to run the ball, let's be honest. And they didn't. I don't think the defensive coordinators did a great job, frankly, in some of those games trying to scheme that away from them, bringing guys into the box, especially Washington, leaving their safeties back like they did. But you've got to give a nod to Sharon Moore and the job he's done with those guys. They look like they're having fun. Number 1. Number 2, and we talked about this, and I want you to talk about it again, it looks like they're being put in positions to succeed, whereas in the past, the recent past, they were being asked to make blocks that even the best linemen would have a hard time making. And number 3, man, they're playing with some violence. And you see those combo blocks. You're seeing guys getting pushed off the ball. You mentioned Trevor Keegan just washing his guy out of the play on one play when we were doing the film review. Pretty remarkable, the turnaround, especially for a group that hasn't played together all that much, Skene.
Yeah, so in reverse order, what you just talked about. So Ryan Hayes at left tackle absolutely destroyed a linebacker, and although you couldn't really see it all that well in the television copy, finished him off and buried him and put his belt buckle in his face on the Michigan sideline there. I did see that on television. That one makes me warm and fuzzy inside. And then Keegan on that other big play, I think it was a Donovan Edwards run. Keegan, or maybe it was a Blake Corum run. I can't remember. Doesn't really matter. Keegan smashes the guy all the way down, flat line of scrimmage, doesn't allow penetration, knocks him down. I see these players executing this level of knockdown and pancake kind of effort. And I'm telling you, Ballas, it builds on itself, and you start to build an expectation, and the guys start getting a little bit of swagger in their step, and they start kind of giggling and laughing and watching the film together. When you do, and you see yourself and your teammates doing this to opponents, you are demoralizing them, and you're setting up an expectation for the next week. So back to your original point, Coach Sharon Moore deserves a hell of a lot of credit for producing this so far, the results of this offensive line. We all wondered how he was going to do as a guy who's never coached offensive line, but this group of young men has responded very, very well to his coaching style and the support that he's giving them. And to the credit, Chuck Filiaga is playing much better than he did a year ago. Why is this? One of the main answers is the schemes and the things they're asking these guys to do are somewhat simplified. They're doing a lot of gap or down blocking, and they're pulling the backside guard and or tackle and tight end across the formation. And that's pretty much what we've seen them do. We've seen a little bit of zone blocking schemes, a little bit. But by and large, it's down block the front side, pull somebody around from the backside to take care of the front side linebacker responsibilities, or bring a tight end in there with you. And they're only doing a couple things. Well, if I do just a couple things every day in practice, thousands of times a week, I'm probably going to get pretty dang on good at it.
Yeah.
And so this is really cool. And then the curveballs are, hey, let's pull the center out to the edge and have him lead a block, or let's down block with the tight end, pull the front side guard around. But the principles are all the same. You're down blocking or you're pulling. And that's it. That's really all we're really doing. And we got good angles so that these guys can have success. So they're not doing the dumb football things we saw a year ago. And that's putting these guys in a higher percentage chance to have success. They're doing it, they're having that success, and they're showing they're having fun while they're doing it. So this is all good stuff
Yeah.
through 3 weeks, no doubt.
And two things that Sharon Moore said today that I thought that you would appreciate, that I know I appreciated. Number one, he put the caveat on there that it's been 3 games and it's going to get a lot tougher. Okay. I want to see in 2 weeks, everybody's like, are you sipping the Kool-Aid yet, Balas, on the message boards? And I said, you know what? I will sip some Kool-Aid if and when they go into Wisconsin and are able to do some things, because those 325, 335 pound defensive tackles are going to be attacking those gaps and making these guys beat them with a little more strength. Not just about, win or holding the line of scrimmage, but they're going to make them. You got to win the line of scrimmage, and that's something they didn't do in the first week, but they still ran the ball well. They did much better in the second and the third week, as they should against those teams, even though Washington's got some guys up front that are pretty good. The other thing he said is, I'm going to coach you hard. I'm going to love you harder. Now, I don't think Les Miles ever loved you guys all that much, but he sure coached the hell out of you. And what he wanted for you guys was to be great for Michigan and for you guys. And to me, I really thought that was a great thing for him to say.
Well, that is what all the greatest coaches have found, the wonderful balance of how you get the most out of your players. And it's not just football, Ballas, but any coach in any sport. And I bet if you took a poll of the listeners to this podcast and people that have played sports in their life, and you say, who is your best coach? Who is your favorite coach and why? And somewhere in those answers, you're going to hear something like, they pushed me to my limits, they demanded greatness, but I knew that they cared. I knew that they wanted what's best for me, and they showed that. And how coaches do that is they ask how things are going off the field. What can I do to help you? How's your mom and dad doing? What's going on in your social life? Is everything okay? And not just saying it for the questions, just for simply saying it, but you really mean it. And the coaches that can really get the most out of their players, they outwardly show that kind of care and love for their players. And when you do that, when the time comes for him to coach hard and demand things, those players will tear their skin off trying, because they know this guy or this coach or whoever it is has my best interest at heart. And it's real easy for coaches to be the tough guy and be the jerk and be a hard ass. That's easy. Anybody can do that. But it's not so easy to develop a real relationship with your players, so that when the time comes to put your foot in their backside as a coach, they respond best. This is why you hear a whole generation or 2 generations of Michigan football players talk with such admiration for Bo Schembechler. And this is why you hear players like myself and others talk this way about Jerry Hanlon, because these coaches showed how much they cared in ways that you don't see on television. We don't get this as fans. You just don't get that part when you're watching the games. But this is what makes a difference in a good football program and a great football program.
Yeah, saw Coach Hanlon. I think I told you a couple weeks ago at an event in Ann Arbor. You'll be going to the next one. We'll have to pick him up. 92 years old, looking great. There was a reunion of the 80 to 84 teams, and it was fantastic to see how they treated him. And I would keep thinking he would be pretty pleased if he were still doing some analysis for us with the way these guys are firing off the ball, and not just the first team line scheme, but watching that second team line reminded me of when you guys got in there back in the early '90s, and you're waiting and you're frothing at the mouth. You're not just out there in mop-up duty saying, "Oh well, let's get this over with and go to the kegger." Man, you guys wanted to do something because you've been preparing. These guys, these second teamers, man, showed me a little something on Saturday.
Well, so one of the things I've been thinking about that, Balas, why does that happen? Why does the second team get in there and have such success? Why does the first team get in there and have such success when the game is still on the line? What causes that to be so good that your opponents are looking for the chicken sandwich in the middle of the third quarter and to get the hell out of there? And it was Coach Harbaugh or maybe it was one of the offensive linemen, I can't remember, had said that this year what they're doing different this year is they're running the old 9-on-7 drill in practice. And I can tell you from 25, 30 years ago, that 9-on-7 period was the most violent, aggressive, hard-ass section of football practice. It was base defense versus base offense. There were no blitzes. There was no nothing. It was just, we're going to run the football right here, and let's see if you can stop it. It was brutal, and it was only like a dozen plays. So you got your, 6, 7, 8 snaps is the most you would get depending on the rotation in practice there. But that right there just set a tone for practice, and you do it throughout the week and throughout the course of the year. It builds a toughness, and it builds an expectation that even when this guy knows across from me that we're going to run the football, I can still block him. That translates into success on the field. That I absolutely believe that if they're running that drill the way we used to have to run it, that is one of the reasons you're seeing the positive results on Saturdays.
Yeah, I mean, you got to practice hard. It's like you guys used to practice harder than you played on Saturday. Frankly, that's what everybody used to say. I don't know when it stopped, and it had to at some point when the numbers went down. And I get it. You can't be out there killing each other and breaking limbs and everything else. At the same time, if you go out there and you're not hitting in practice, then it's going to be shocking when you're hitting in a game. So, and I think that is something that we're seeing when they talked about the 9-on-7 drill. And I was thinking back to when you and I first talked, man, a long time ago for Where Are They Now feature. And you were talking about that and the memories. And I'm thinking that's a good sign. And I like that. Not a good sign for people who don't like violence in sport, but as football goes, to me, that's a good thing. By the way, we're going to have to put it out there to either Chick-fil-A or Wendy's or somebody about the chicken sandwich thing, because that thing has taken on a life of its own on Twitter, which is great. And every time I see a guy chicken winging or wanting to get the hell out of there, I think about Skene and the chicken sandwich. So we're going to have to see if we can get a sponsor for that. So, Skene, I got to ask you a couple more things here. The tight end blocking I thought was better last week, and the wide receiver blocking. That's something that they're going to really need going into Big Ten play.
No doubt, especially at the line of scrimmage when those tight ends get down to the 3-point stance and are expected to combo with their tackles or down block and seal off a defensive end. They're doing the same things with their feet, their hips, their hands, their shoulders, and their eyeballs as the offensive tackle and offensive guard is doing. It's the same. It's the same blocking drill that they're doing in practice. You step flat with the inside foot. You take a short second step, and you got to get up and into a man and seal him down inside without letting penetration get to your inside. So they're going to continue to have to be good at that. I think the pathways in which the tight ends were pulling across or coming across the formation, do their inside-out kick blocks across the formation to find a front-side defensive end or a front-side linebacker. That pathway got a little bit better, and their eyeballs are a little bit better. And I can see some progress there for sure. But most notably, like you said, the difference in the wide receiver blocking in the Washington game versus the Northern Illinois game, it was much better for two reasons. Number one, I don't think Northern Illinois had the secondary that Washington did. I think Washington had some good football players back there, but it looked like just overall the effort and the desire to get up in someone's grill and block them until the whistle is done blowing. That looked like it was much, much better against Northern Illinois than it was the week before. And it's going to be critical because those little tiny differences can be the difference between a 5-yard gain and a 15, 20, or more yard gain in these bigger games that are yet to come.
Yeah, I think Rutgers is well coached. I've watched Greg Schiano's teams back when he was in the Big East. I don't know if you knew this. We put this on at the Wolverine.com during the coaching search that Greg Schiano, I think Bill Martin thought that he had hired him for a hot second. And in fact, they were in New York at an event together. They were at the table. Greg Schiano comes up to his table, and this is from somebody who was at Bill Martin's table, shakes his hand after they had met for an interview and said, "Thank you. Everything sounds great. I will talk to you tomorrow." Then you put the pieces together, and there was an article in the New Jersey paper that night about how they were promising new facilities. And I'm like, he's parlaying this into new facilities. Regardless, I think Greg Schiano could have been a good follow up to Lloyd Carr. And what happened was Schiano and Rich Rodriguez shared the same agent. So Schiano's agent said, "Hey, I got another guy that's interested." And the rest is history. So, but I like Schiano, and I want your thoughts on him in that program. That's going to be a program. I don't think they're going to ever contend in the Big Ten East, but they're going to beat some people.
Well, so if you go back to Schiano's first pass at Rutgers there, we can all look at he got that program up off the mat and got them competitive. And that's not easy to do in a modern era of football at Rutgers, but he did it. And then he left to make some tours around college football and then in the NFL and ended up back at Rutgers. I don't have any doubt this guy's a good football coach. He's proven that in my mind from his first stance at Rutgers. He's going to build a team that's going to knock some people off. Will he ever be able to get through an entire Big Ten East season and win a championship? Might be a bit of a long shot. That goes back to his recruiting, and he's going to have to pull some talent from outside of his backyard to get kids to go to school there. But they're going to be better, certainly better than we've seen in the last couple of years. And so I would not circle the Rutgers game as some sort of easy laugh-off game at all going forward as long as Greg Schiano's the coach. That guy can coach football.
Yep, and I would expect that they are going to throw some things at them. They're going to probably stack the box and make them throw a little bit, even though their corners are out. That was interesting. They had an incident, a couple guys suspended. It doesn't look like they're going to play. That doesn't help because they don't have the depth right now. They're recruiting extremely well in state, but as of right now, they don't have the numbers. I think they put up 2.7 yards per play against Syracuse, if I'm not mistaken. So, but they're going to try to run the ball on that in the interior of the Michigan defense. I don't think there's any question about that. We still don't know. It's not a bad thing. It's not pejorative, saying that they're untested because they have been. And again, there are bigger tests to come. But this guy is going to make them line up and beat them. So it should be very interesting. We'll get your pick on Thursday or Friday in staff picks. I'm looking forward to it, Skene. Appreciate your time as always, and we'll do this again. Well, I guess we'll talk to you after the game.
All right, go Blue.